Affairs Forum of WZTV Fox 17. And now your host, Dr. James Haney.
Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is African-American female adolescents, a project, and we're fortunate to have with us two persons to talk about African-American females. Ms. Susan F. Dixon. Ms. Dixon is the president of Learning Systems Group, an organization that is concerned with African-American females. And of course, with Ms. Dixon is Ms. AVienneaau1. Ms. AVienneaau1 is also with the YWCA as a project manager for African-American adolescents, a project. And let me welcome both of you ladies to the show this morning.
Thank you.
Ms. Dixon, what we'd like to do this morning is to talk about African-American females as a project, and at the same time to give our audience some additional information dealing with some of the other things that African-American females face. But before we get into that, let us have you and Mrs. AVienneaau later on to give us some background information about your background and the education and things that were important in terms of leading you to where you are. And then, of course, Ms. AVienneaau will give us that same kind of information, and then we'll talk about African-American females as a project.
Great, thank you. And I want to thank you so much for having us both here to talk about the project. Basically, I suppose to highlight my background, I'm not a Nashvilleian by background. I'm from Pennsylvania and spent many years of my career in developing programs that would address societal issues facing families and individuals, and then moved to Nashville 6 years ago.
Very good. So what about your involvement with the Learning Systems Group?
I'm president of Learning Systems Group, and Learning Systems Group is a private, nonprofit organization that develops programs and products, teaching materials, deliver training in a variety of areas. We do programming in the area of disability and rehabilitation and substance abuse prevention, specifically health prevention as well, and also in education and special education.
Very good. Okay, Ms. AVienneaau, let's talk about your background in the YWCA.
All right. I am a native Nashvilleian. I received my educational experience here in Nashville, receiving my degree from Vanderbilt University. Professionally, I have years of experience both developing and implementing programs for youth, primarily programs focusing on issues for young girls, and that is what I do at the YWCA. I also have an artistic background in that I was a former dancer with the Dance Theater of Harlem. So I bring that combination of both education and experience plus the artistic background to this project.
Very good. And let's, Ms. Dixon, to talk about African-American females as a project. And I say that from the standpoint that ordinarily, when we talk about this segment of the African-American population, generally we focus upon African-American males. And I think everybody is familiar with this whole syndrome of the endangered African-American male and et cetera. But it's often surprising to people to recognize that there are some real problems dealing with African-American adolescent females. And let's talk about that from the perspective of the two of you this morning.
Okay, I'd be glad to. I suppose the part of my background that I skipped over was the 20 years in Washington, D.C. And during that time, I had the opportunity of seeing firsthand some of the challenges presented to African-American females, and particularly youth. The severity of the challenges they were facing, the complexity of their lives, and certainly knowing from my standpoint of being a female, I had one perspective, but then you apply that to the African-American, and you know even the additional challenges that were being faced. And I was always sensitive to the fact that I felt that we were skipping over that segment of the population and spending so much time focusing on the male, and yet the female is such a critical part of the family and the continuation, you know, of the African-American culture and family. And so interestingly enough, when I came here to Nashville some years ago, I started working with Adelaide on another program that she was doing with African American females. And so we immediately started dreaming and visualizing a program of this type where we could apply both of our areas of expertise, ours in the area of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, which is our organizational expertise, and theirs is with youth, in particular African American. And we decided to design a program that would address the particular needs of African American youth. So it was really my 20 years in Washington, and seeing firsthand of the challenges presenting to African American young girls, even living in a city that was very, it had a very strong African American culture to it. But even with that, the support systems weren't always there.
Very good. Ms. AVienneau, now you're the program manager for this project. Let's talk about it from the perspective of the YWCA. Not only that, since you are involved with the Y, give us as much information as you possibly can about the organization itself and some of the structures in terms of where the program that you're involved fits into the Y overall thrust.
Okay. Well, the YWCA has as its mission to develop and implement programs to empower women and girls to reach their full potential. And because that's our mission, we have a variety of programs serving girls from 10 on up. And some of those programs include our domestic violence program, which we are really seen as a leader in the community addressing those issues around domestic violence. We have employment and training programs for women that want to re-enter the workforce. Plus we have our youth programs, which consist of after-school programs and summer cultural enrichment opportunities. We have career life planning programs where we offer classes to the general community, but also do career life planning, both individual counseling, and also workshops. So that's just an idea of some of the programs that we have at the YW. Because our expertise in the youth department is working with young girls, and specifically African American young girls, it was a perfect partnership with Learning Systems Group to bring their experience of alcohol and tobacco and other drug prevention, our expertise in working with African American females, and to design a program that would really address the needs and the issues that they face today.
Very good. Ms. Dixon, how did you tie from the perspective of Learning Systems Group? How did you tie these things together? That is, the drug, alcohol part of it with the female adolescent part of it. I mean, what were some of the things that you said from your perspective that ought to be done dealing with this particular problem?
I think from a company perspective, we like to look at the individual as a whole and also the environment and our communities in a whole perspective, and not to say only this segment should be addressed. And we certainly saw within the area of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, I mean, one of the segments that we really felt needed to have some attention is, in fact, African American youth. We also do programming for people with disabilities around alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. And so we look at it from a very broad perspective and then try and address those issues within that.
And what did you find when you looked into that area from that broad perspective? Well,
certainly in terms of the challenges for the youth, we felt that it was important to develop a program that would have 3 components to it, to have an individual component, a family component, as well as a community component. So many programs, I call them one-shot deals, and they only do something that's so scattered that there's not a long-term impact. And so what this program does, it was funded by the Center for Substance Abuse Prevention to give us the opportunity to develop a comprehensive program addressing alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs specifically for this age population. And that's what we have done in terms of looking at it from the 3-tier individual, family, and community. Exactly. So that's what makes it unique in that we're not looking at just what should we be doing for these girls, because it's more than just the girls, because they live in a community. And so we have to look at it from a community perspective as well.
What's the approach that you use in terms of dealing